Hi guys, it's Julia, and I have a story to tell you, and I thought we would do it with a little fun science experiment. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing, because that's more important than who I am. All right? So, as you know, we know that God created the world, and He created everything in it. And I'm using water, and I'm putting red in the water so that you can see it better. And when God created the world and everything in it, and we know that right away, people made a choice, and they made a choice to live their life based on their will and not God's. We know that they wanted to decide good and evil from themselves, and they wanted to make their choices and live their life to serve their best interest, and they abandoned God's way, and therefore they left the Garden of Eden. God said, if you aren't going to live my way, you cannot live here. And we know as we walk through the Bible that time and time again, God keeps sending ways for people to reconnect with Him. He keeps trying to get the people on earth to live the way He wants them to live, with kindness and love towards others, and trust in Him and His power, and trust in Him and His glory. And so He rescues the Israelites, and still they turn away. And He saves Moses and the people, and He provides a land of milk and honey. And over again, people forget to trust God fully and then keep looking out for themselves. And each time we do that, when we look out for ourselves and we don't put others first, we end up making mistakes and hurting people and not doing God's will on earth the way that we should be. And so after a while, God came up with a new rescue plan, and God sent Jesus to the world. And we call Jesus the light of the world, because He was like a light in the darkness, a bit of God on earth. And when Jesus was on earth, He spent His whole time teaching people how God wanted them to live. He turned it upside down. Instead of having everyone look out for themselves and doing what they could to keep themselves fed and doing what they could to keep themselves healthy, He showed people what God's way was. And God's way was to look out for others, to live a life of humility. And through all of the things that Jesus did, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, He keeps reminding people that the way to heaven, the way to create a close connection with God, is to live a life where you serve others. Now, the religious leaders, of course, they didn't like that message so much. They wanted their power to be their power. They wanted to be glorified as wise religious leaders. And so they kept finding ways to try and silence Jesus and His message. They didn't want Him to be called the Son of God. It made them afraid. And of course, we know, because it's almost Easter, that the priests and the religious leaders found a way to silence Jesus. And they crucified Him on a cross. And they thought they were doing work according to what they wanted, but it turns out that they were creating a rescue plan. And by crucifying Jesus on the cross, they solidified the way for us to live with God. And now we know that because of what Jesus did, because of dying on the cross, if we follow Him, if we live our lives the way He did, with humility and love and kindness and justice, then we know that we too can be connected with God, and we will find ourselves with Jesus in heaven one day, just like God's plan was. So, I hope you enjoyed that message, and I look forward to seeing you again. Happy Easter!